It's
that
that
when
computer
someone's
voice.
taking a photo and taking too long to take it, and you're like, I'm smiling.
I think it's working. Excellent connection. That's new. The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Ben Ark from LN Bits.
Hello all.
Josh Shigala from Vaultoro.
This is the face that hedge fund managers pull when a guy called Potato in your ass takes all your money.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Bitcoin Proselytizer Saylor says over 1,000 firms join webinar. Michael Saylor says he sees an avalanche of companies moving their cash into Bitcoin over the next 12 months. The chief executive officer of MicroStrategy Incorporated and Bitcoin Proselytizer made the projection at his company's World Now Global Conference that featured breakout sessions on the future of Bitcoin and how corporations can best position themselves to capitalize on the digital token. According to Saylor, 1,400 corporations signed up for the session on Bitcoin legal considerations. Ben Ark, is Michael Saylor and his conference good for Bitcoin?
His use of colorful language is good for Bitcoin. He's got some nice. So my favorite one he said was that he's ready for the ocean of asset liquidity and it's about to pour into the pond of Bitcoin, the small pond of Bitcoin. I very much like the way he turns a phrase. But it was a good conference. Congratulations to him. And they made some very good points, which we've been saying for years, that all businesses, if they've got fiat on their as part of their on their books, then they should diversify some of that into Bitcoin. Just a small percentage, that it just makes sense. And now for businesses who want to, they can't trust their local fiat sovereign currency because they're worried about things like hyperinflation, then Bitcoin is a ever more appealing asset for them to diverse into. So that seemed to be the general theme, although there was a whole bunch of breakout sessions and it was a very well organized conference event. I know a bunch of businesses who attended it and they were very excited about it. What's great about it is Michael Saylor kind of is a bridge to kind of legacy finance, and he's a legitimate actor in that world. He's not one of us crazy Bitcoiners. So when he says, this is something you guys should be taking seriously and you should be securing, your wealth in this thing, then they're going to listen to him, which is, overall good for Bitcoin. Because then eventually these companies which have some part of their portfolio in Bitcoin will then think, well, how can we improve the price of Bitcoin? How can we help Bitcoin grow? Which is what everyone does when they own a little bit of Bitcoin. They want to contribute back in some way. So these companies will then hopefully offer services and products and things which you can do with Bitcoin. So yeah, good for Bitcoin. Well done, Mr. Saylor.
Well, I am one of those crazy Bitcoiners, and I think we're just moving too fast here. We tried it, like Ben said, these are very good points, like we've been saying for years, and it's too bad that no one ever listened to us. I wish that more normal people would listen to us. I know some people are still fighting ahead. People like the Bitcoin or the Black Bitcoin billionaires on Clubhouse, they're running a 1 million Satoshi drive to try to get everyone in their group to get 1 million Satoshis, get them on a hardware wallet, and just hold them, I guess, until they're worth $1 million. I don't know. I wish more normal people would have gotten in. I see how much success he's had organizing the corporations, and I see everyone in the community waving for it. But I also feel more like it's waving goodbye, like goodbye Bitcoin, like it's a ship sailing away and the corporations are up on the top deck and they're like, oh, this is some lovely Bitcoin you've brought us from the internet. Thank you, internet. Thank you for your lovely Bitcoin. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Josh Gagala.
It's oh, sorry. It's
sorry, go ahead,
can I, yeah, no, it's just that exponential knock-on effect. So that, you know, there's that experiment you can do with it's like dominoes, bigger and bigger dominoes, where you take a feather and you knock over a little domino, and then there's a slightly bigger block and a slightly bigger block, and it moves up. And after, like, I think it's only 11 iterations or something, you can like knock over a skyscraper. You say that you've been screaming at a brick wall, but you haven't. You've been, you know, for years, you know, every week you've been doing these shows, and it has had influence and it has impacted people. And then eventually it ends up on the ears of someone like Michael Saylor, and then he goes and knocks the next, you know, layer of people with this big block. So yeah, I wouldn't feel like you haven't contributed to getting Bitcoin out there in the world.
I mean, Gene Simmons follows you, for God's sakes.
That's true. Welcome to Gene Simmons of KISS, who now follows the World Crypto Network. Yeah, I think we've done a little, Ben, like we've pushed it out there, and certainly a lot of other people have made their own podcasts, their own videos. Everyone's tried in their own way to spread the word about Bitcoin. But it just seems like it's happened so fast. And I wish we could have gotten more people in. If only we'd had another downturn or another upturn or another chance, you know, before it went crazy. Now it feels like it's gone so crazy that it's never going to go back to the normal person could buy Bitcoin range. We are completely in the only the crazy rich can buy Bitcoin. Josh,
well, that's not true. That's the problem. Everyone, and that's why I'm really a big fan of denominating in bits or sats. I think bits are even better, which is the 6 decimal points, because you can just say like 29 bits and 32 sats. You know, it sort of rolls off the tongue nicely. I like it, but people have their problems with it. But yeah, I mean, people have done so much over this period of time, over the years, and I think we've got to all take our hats off to the people that weren't the Michael Saylors. The problem that I see with this whole Michael Saylor thing is that his deal is to make the number go up, 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 up. And that's fine, but it should be the technology that gets better and better. And I really wish that if Michael put maybe, you know, 200 mil, whatever, it doesn't even matter, like 2 mil into some developers to develop the Lightning Network stuff, I think would really help his portfolio grow a lot more than just pumping more money and having more demand from these big players. Because at the end of the day, this technology needs to keep, you know, the people building this technology who are sitting in their mum's basement are the ones that need to eat, need to survive, and need to keep working away and beavering away. While, yeah, Michael Saylor brings in the big money, the big brains need to be fed that keep on building on this. And I think it's such an important thing to remember, that we need to support the developers of cool projects in this space.
Well, and that's the way I feel, Josh. It's very easy to feel cynical about this, to see Saylor putting so much money in. And because now he's put all this money in, it's worth his time to run a conference like this. It's worth his time to talk about it all the time. Previously, Saylor was mocking Bitcoin like the rest of us. I can't help thinking, even with Gene Simmons of KISS, who says he put 7 figures into Bitcoin and 6 figures into Dogecoin, God knows why. But I can't help feeling how much more they could have gotten 5 years ago, how much more they could have gotten, 8 years ago. They wait and they wait and they wait until it's already established, and then they come in. And yes, he has no interest in the technology. He doesn't think it's a currency. A friend of mine was telling me how Bitcoin wasn't a currency yesterday. And I was like, well, you can send it over you can send it anywhere, one directional, and it works. They can cash it out. How is the dollar better? How is a piece of paper or some coins better, or in any way comparative? Like, it's like comparing a CD to an MP3. An MP3 created iTunes, created Amazon Music, all these YouTube Music, all these services. What did the CD create? A pile of CDs. Like, go to eBay, try to buy a CD. There's lots of CDs available.
And it's very easy for someone to sit in a Western society and say, yeah. But I mean, we have, I'm part of the Voltura team. We've got one Venezuelan woman. We've got a woman from Iran, a graphic designer, and working with us here in Berlin. And these people tell you all the time about the pain, the absolute suffering in their homelands that hyperinflation has brought, and this ridiculous fiat system that just allows governments to keep printing money out of nowhere, keep instead of hey, well, let's not tax people, let's just print this. Not, I mean, how is, I'd rather flip the question and say, how is the USD or a currency anymore? They can just print as much as they want. And the thing is, once you start into crypto, once you start in Bitcoin, that's when you start to take note of inflation. That's when you start to take note of how many coins are there. Like if you're looking at some of these altcoins and projects, the first thing you do is go, what's the inflation rate? How much? What's the technology? What's the problem they're trying to, like, whereas the USD, it's like, well, we don't know. We don't know. None of it. We don't know. They could just print.
I'm not even sure if it matters for these projects anymore, Josh, trying to understand them through inflation or number of units. I mean, all of these things were true about Ethereum. Endless number of units, obvious pre-mine, potential for inflation. And it didn't matter. The price went up anyway. Look at all this DeFi stuff. No one really knows what it is, what's going on, and the price is going up anyway. So cynically, I think Saylor's here at the right time. He's here for the price to go up. And as much as it might hurt for all the people who went up and down and lost their money and won their money and won it back and lost it again, it looks like Saylor and the football player are here, and that the price will never go down again. And just goes up forever. These guys have in touch.
I mean, so for me, when Bitcoin was tracking the share price last year, I found that concerning. But now it's clearly being used as a hedge against uncertainty. People are finding that it's something of a rock they can cling to in uncertain times, and to me that's kind of one of Bitcoin's biggest selling points. And it's fine if Michael Saylor wants to use it for that as well, and if he wants to use it as digital gold, like, just by using it as for one function doesn't mean it can't fulfill a whole bunch of other functions. And maybe commerce is the niche. I'm paying for servers anonymously through something like BitClouds or Lunar Node, and getting a host, a domain name on something like names, which you can pay for on Bitcoin on Lightning Network, and it's anonymous. Like, maybe those services which are available for commerce, maybe that is still our niche when these big, rich, big portfolios are investing in Bitcoin as a store of wealth and to hedge against uncertainty. But I don't feel too negative about it. I feel like it's to Bitcoin's strength, and when these legitimate actors are not just as freaky hackers and weird, crypto enthusiasts are interested in Bitcoin, when these legitimate people out there within the legacy world, when they're integrating Bitcoin and engaging with Bitcoin, it legitimizes it for other people. And even just in the news cycle, you see more positive. Bitcoin sort of talked about in a more positive light, so I'm enjoying that very much. But yeah, if they want to use it for that function, they can use it for that function, and we'll carry on making our weird commerce Lightning Network things.
I think Ben's onto something there, and it builds into the exit question. Exit question: is the Bitcoin Trojan horse still intact? Is it being carried inside the walls of Troy? Josh Sigala.
Yeah, until it unleashes more of a fungible aspect, more of a privacy aspect, it's definitely the Trojan. Oh, we can control this. We can follow everything. We can control everything, and then all of a sudden we'll get Taproot and some of these other things in there, and it'll be a lot more fungible. I definitely think that that it's one of these Trojans, because look, a lot of people don't realize how powerful it is. So maybe it's not a Trojan to some aspects of the state or to some aspects of the banking system, but a lot of people, I think, don't understand it's a Trojan. They're getting in it because it's number goes up technology. But really, when you step back and in a few years, you'll realize, wow, we've just sucked value away from Wall Street, and we've sucked value away from the Federal Reserve, actually, of the world, the Federal Reserves, the different central banks, and allowed people to secure value. And I'm still waiting for the day that we start to see, and I'm pretty sure it's already happened, but certain countries people just start rampantly borrowing to put their money into crypto, to then not care whether they get a black mark against their name. Not investment advice, folks, but this is definitely going to happen. These are sorts of things that could black swan events that could basically destroy small economies, and just not the economies. Sorry, it would destroy the state apparatus of controlling currency in those countries. The economy would probably boom in those areas where people start to actually hold value and keep value, but they wouldn't care about a black mark, because usually how the credit system now works is that they take out too much credit, they default on it, and then the state just takes, or the banks just take your assets, take your house, take your car, take your bean bags, and take your TV. And so with Bitcoin, they can't do that. And I think that leads into another story of ours.
I do wonder, Josh, if they realize the trap that they're in, and that, yes, for every time that the central banks print more money, the Bitcoiners respond by not printing any more Bitcoin, and that we're not going to print any more Bitcoin, and that there's this cycle happening now where the more money and wealth they put into their markets, the less Bitcoin it can buy. Every time the bank prints more money to buy Bitcoin, they get less and less Satoshis. So I think that's still intact. No one talks about it. No one mentions it. Michael Saylor's not out there like, we're going to trick the banks into buying Bitcoin, which is going to destroy their currency and make Bitcoin into a currency. No one seems to be saying that. But I still believe it's there. I still believe it's happening. It's happening without us. The horse is beyond us now. The Trojans are pulling it with a big rope. As Greeks, we've already left, or we're inside the beast. And it's beyond our control. Like, they're going to take it inside the walls. Maybe they're going to have a big bonfire. Maybe they're going to just leave it there like a statue, and our guys are going to creep out in the middle of the night, open up the walls, and suddenly the ships are back and Troy falls. So we'll have to see what happens. Ben, Ark, let's see if you can unmute yourself. Going to need some special hardware power. All right.
How's that going? Good. I'm muted.
So, Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, it's the Trojan horse. Play with just the digital. It's just digital gold. Just play with it. It's fine. Just put money into it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And then before they know it, their entire financial system has been infected with this free and open source money, or this free and open source value storage system, or whatever you want to call it. It's just like an operating system. For a long time, proprietary operating systems dominated. And then, this little guppy, this little plucky Linux system started to emerge, and the big corporations, the Microsoft and Apple, they were terrified of this thing, even though it's just being, maintained and built by a whole bunch of people, hackers and who aren't being paid, and maybe a couple of paid employees like Linus Torvalds and the guy who's around here, I always forget his Alan Cox. But they went on to then become the dominant operating system for servers, and more Linux is being used for desktop computers and laptops, and we're all running Android on our phone, and Linux is the Trojan, the free and open source alternative. The Trojan is well established within our society, and now Microsoft is in fact the biggest free and open source contributor on the planet. So I think that'll happen, that you won't completely dissolve fiat currency and the legacy financial system, but it will be strong-armed into behaving by Bitcoin, just as we've seen with operating systems. And I think that's John Nash's premise as well, was the ideal money would be the eventual money we end up with when it has like competitor, which is outside of the reach and the control of government. The Trojan is infecting, and this is why we shouldn't feel nostalgic and sad and cynical about these big players coming into Bitcoin. We should be like, yeah, you carry on. We should encourage them. Come on, put some more of your money into Bitcoin. See how it goes.
You're right, Ben. They used to call Linux people communists or communists, and now they all work
the copy leftists.
Or IBM, copy leftist. Yes, I had a shirt that said C and had things like that for years. Super fun. But not anymore. Now we're mainstream. Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2, PayPal. Fourth quarter transaction revenue rose 11.8% since adding crypto. Customers who bought crypto through PayPal have been logging in twice as much as they were before, the payments giant said. Once again, why did PayPal wait so long to do this? We talked about PayPal for years. We were even talking about PayPal on this show back when Cryptsy was still a thing and hadn't exit scammed with all the money. We thought that PayPal could buy Cryptsy or become another Cryptsy, offering people all the fun of hundreds or even thousands of altcoins. And now both PayPal and Coinbase and presumably all the other services will eventually resemble what Cryptsy once was such a parody of. PayPal and crypto, it's finally here. Josh Shigala, is PayPal a good thing for crypto now that they're having such success?
Yeah, sure. I mean, back in the day, Bitwala was was the only way to sort of get money onto Mt. Gox. Bitwala was kind of like trying to be a PayPal, a different competitor. It was like nobody knew this thing. No one knew what the hell Bitwala was, and probably no one knows now. But for a moment there, they got really famous in this space because the news were talking about them, because Bitcoin was being talked about. And it was still very niche, of course. It wasn't as nowhere near mainstream as now, but it definitely lifted that brand up like crazy. And PayPal, I don't know why they waited this long. I guess the problem with PayPal is that they just didn't want to ruin relationships with major banks. And instead, they really, they waited for all these startups, all these trailblazers like ourselves and like the companies we've worked for in this space to take on the big boys. We really struggled in this industry to try and get partners. We had a team of people constantly onboarding back. Like we'd always get a bank shut down and we'd have to start a new one. And it was very, very hard. And PayPal just went, nah. And now when everyone, can quite easily do it, the regulators are on board. They're like, yeah, okay, we're all so hip and cool. I think try to stick with exchanges that are trailblazed. The other thing that really grinds my gears is that you can't withdraw your Bitcoin. You can't withdraw your Ethereum or whatever you're buying on there. You can just buy the price. So basically, you're buying a derivative. I think I don't know. Are you? I'm not sure. They say you're not. They say you're buying the thing, and they should be, but you could just as well be buying the price. It would be very risky for them to do, but you could be buying the price and then they just sell the price onto someone who wants to buy and just set up a market order book full of prices. Now we'll see. We'll see. I would like to see them actually deliver crypto. I'd like to see their wallets. They've got enough money. They should be really tapping into the chipsets, the secure chipsets on phones. That allow you to hold private keys. PayPal should really trailblaze this spot. They've got enough money. Again, they should be supporting the developers in this space. They're the ones that have built this technology. There's some amazing people, young kids, really, literally in the hills of Myanmar, building little applications on this. And these people can be employed to build cool stuff for PayPal. I really would like to see the Lightning Network. What PayPal have done is kind of token efforts. Like, yeah, we now accept crypto. Come on, guys, put the Lightning Network in there. Let's start transacting. Let's start moving this stuff. Integrate with some chat apps to be able to pay per chat. Integrate with some email. Like, hey PayPal, well, how about this? We fix email and make it that if you want to send Josh an email, 2 sats need to come with that email for me to be able to open it. Hey, why don't we do that? Hey, why don't we use that protocol? Why don't we use the 406? payment needed. Like, come on, PayPal, actually do some real stuff. Don't just, we now let you buy Bitcoin. Screw you. There's plenty of places we can buy Bitcoin at. Come on, do some real work.
I agree with Josh. I think what PayPal's done is incredibly boring, but it's great for adoption. Instead of telling people to go to some weird Coinbase or some kind of cash app that they've never used before, you say, hey, go to PayPal and you can buy Bitcoin. And they say, I already have a PayPal account. I've already put my driver's license in. I already connected it to my credit card or my bank account. All of these steps are gone. So you can really go from $0 to $100 worth of Bitcoin just like that. And like Josh said, yeah, they can't take it out, which is good and bad. So if they get hacked, maybe it can't be taken away. Of course, we know PayPal is famous for freezing your account. So get ready for a whole nother round of they froze his Bitcoin on PayPal stories. Bitcoin is unfreezable. How did this happen? And again, it's just about PayPal controlling your keys. But still, for a normal person to get in, to get their first $10, to get their first $100, you could go to PayPal right now and just buy it. I did it months ago. I don't even remember what happened, but there's $10 worth of Bitcoin there. And someday maybe I come back and it's more. Ben Ark, your thoughts? Gotta unmute.
They got to unmute. I'm waiting for the news article. Bitcoin destroys PayPal, because maybe they are holding the Bitcoin and then their keys get hacked. And so many people buy Bitcoin that suddenly they haven't got any money because all the Bitcoin gets hacked and taken out of PayPal. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not buying Bitcoin, I suppose, if you can't take it out. You just I don't know, buying like Josh says, like a derivative or something, or the promise to pay the bearer. So it's not, and it isn't too exciting. PayPal have always been pretty sluggish and crappy on development. I don't know if you remember using PayPal a few years ago. It still looked like it was something out of the 90s. They did kind of have the monopoly on payments, online payments, through their they were bought out by eBay quite early on. eBay, yeah. So they did kind of have that monopoly pretty early on, and then they had sort of sluggish development. But I will always, I won't do the same rant I did last week about DigiCash and eGold, but obviously to begin with, PayPal did want to be something more than just a settlement layer for transactions. It wanted to be like a digital currency over the internet, for more 402 style payment required solution, and they weren't able to be that. And now there is this technology which allows them to be that, and yeah, they should innovate. But yeah, they're boring, they're sluggish. They've had the monopoly on online payments for such a long time that I don't think they really care. They're just, their customers want Bitcoin, so they're providing Bitcoin as a service. I do like the idea of all these people with their PayPal accounts, like checking the price of their Bitcoin stash, like logging in on their phones, like, oh, how much is it worth now? How much is it worth now? And that's probably why they've had like such an uptick in user interaction over the past quarter. But yeah, they have to be careful, because if they're not, then yeah, Bitcoin could very plausibly destroy PayPal, which would be an exciting headline to cover on this show.
It was interesting, Ben, how people became instantly addicted to Bitcoin, whether they bought it or not. They just said once they bought crypto, they started logging in twice as much. And you don't know if they're buying more, if they're like having FOMO and they're like, oh, I should have bought more. Oh, I saw it at this price and now it's this price. Oh, no. So it just seems like a typical Bitcoin entry cycle there. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. No, it's true. But it's not just PayPal. This is something that I've been wary of for a very long time, in terms of people saying, oh, the governments will start buying Bitcoin, or like major banks. The thing is that for a major government, who's going to hold the private keys? How are you going to do that? You just need some corrupt dude that's access to it, just to then somehow hack the government. And all of a sudden you've got a huge destruction of wealth or theft, And same with these banks, same with PayPal. Obviously we have a lot of techniques with multi-sig and such, but the more complex you get with security, and the bigger the company is, or the organization, the bigger the organization is, the more complex your security needs to be. The more complex your security needs to be, the easier it is to lose your private keys and lose access to them because it's too complex. So it's either not complex enough, in which case you get hacked, or it's too complex, in which case you lose access to them because something's gone wrong and that guy left, we fired him, and or he got hit by a bus, and oh no. And I think there's going to be something here where it's provably lost, and we'll start to tokenize lost coins or something like that. We'll see where maybe a major government like loses access and says, well, we know it's there. Let's just tokenize what's there. And so we'll see what happens. It could happen.
We don't want to jump ahead to the criminal story, but it is possible that the government could just say, hey, we have control of these Bitcoins. We should be able to spend them anyway. That would be interesting to see. But moving on to the exit question. A lot of things happening behind me. Exit question: will PayPal adopt the Lightning Network like Josh said, allowing easy transactions one way, replacing their entire infrastructure with a superior network in 6 months, the next 3 years, or never? Go to Ben Ark first. Nope. No Ben.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, they're not innovators. Their one innovation was bowing to regulators and not pissing off government too much. So they're allowed to continue operating when DigiCash, innovators like DigiCash and eGold were destroyed. So no, they're not innovators. So it's very unlikely they're going to be utilizing Lightning Network anytime soon.
They're going to buy up LN Bits. They're going to buy Ben's house.
Yeah. And then I'll be like, yeah, PayPal. Woo.
PayPal. I love PayPal. Look, unless they buy something like LN Bits or whatever, I just don't think they're, like Ben said, they're going to innovate. They're just going to wait until there's a click solution from Blockstream that will do it. But yeah, it's really sad. I hope they do. Let's say that. I hope they do. I don't think they will.
I agree with Josh. PayPal will not attempt to use the Lightning Network. They'll be replaced by a quicker and faster competitor. Moving on. Did you know the World Crypto Network has its own store at shop.worldcryptonetwork.com? Get Treasures Don't Float, Bitcoin Not Bombs 2020 Halving Edition, and World Crypto Network, the mug that I'm using right here at shop.worldcryptonetwork.com. Here it is, Ben's QR code. Get your Lightning wallet ready, and you can scan this Lightning QR code. This is also a great time to like this show. Give us a thumbs up. It's free. You can also subscribe down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Allow YouTube to do notifications, or subscribe on Twitter at World Crypto Net. That's how you find out about the show. So you can grab Lightning Satoshis right now if you scan this.
Yeah, grab your Blue Wallet, or what other wallet works, Ben? With this is I know that Blue Wallet
Satoshi.
Wallet of Satoshi Zap, I think.
Again, gotta
unmute.
And
just point it at this, and you get some Satoshis.
Sphinx,
and tell your friends. And when you do grab these Satoshis, folks, don't just take them and go, "Oh, great." Go on Twitter and tell them where you got them from and how cool it was, because it is really cool technology. This is technology built by Ben.
Spin up a. Yeah, go pay for a service. Go pay for some service which is being run on Lightning Network. I remember early on in Lightning Network, people were like, "Oh yeah, this is the HTTP of Bitcoin. We're going to have all these amazing applications which are going to be built." And it does kind of feel like that now. Like FearJaff, Zebedee, the company Zebedee, have just released right now. It's like a Lightning Network CS:GO, so people can. CS:GO is like a game kids play on their phone where they get guns from crates or something. That sound old. I don't know what I'm talking about. But you can now pay for that using Bitcoin. So go pay for a service. Go play on something like CS:GO with Zebedee, or go, I don't know, draw some penises on Satoshi's portal, or go hire a server on BitClouds and DDoS Bitcoin.com, or I don't know, do something. But go engage with the Lightning Network and all these anonymous services which you can use it with.
Well, and most importantly, faucets like this are a great way to try out the asset without having to really know anything or buy anything. You can get a little bit of Lightning here. You can send it to a second Lightning wallet. You can pay for a service. You could go to that Satoshi gallery or whatever it's called, the Satoshi art gallery thing, and you could draw a little thing. What I'm saying is by doing multiple things.
The coolest thing you could do with this, if you download something like Wallet Satoshi, and then I don't know, get your partner or your mum or a friend to download Wallet Satoshi, and then just literally send some Lightning, send some Bitcoin over Lightning, and then just watch it go bing bing, or BLW wallet, or Blue Wallet, or all these great Lightning wallets, rather Sphinx, and just the experience of doing a Lightning transaction.
What's the smallest amount they can send back and forth on this, Ben? Like 2 sats, 10 sats?
One sat, send 1 sat. Most of the time you can get a transaction through just free, because why not?
So if you have 100 there, you could onboard 100 people onto the Lightning Network just on their phones, just to show them how Bitcoin works, how the Lightning Network works. And really easy, barely an inconvenience.
And
do it now.
And every time you smash that a banker loses his shirt. So, that just think about that for a second. You think GameStop did some damage? Think again. That like button right there on this show, that is what's going to really show those JP Morgan Chase types.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Moving on to issue 3. Bitcoin jumps above $38,000 a coin as crypto momentum flirts with key resistance level. There it is again, the price of Bitcoin, which has trended higher after peaking near $42,000 last month. Indicators suggest the coin has room to run and will make another run at the $40,000 Bitcoin level. Ben Ark, will the price of Bitcoin go higher?
It's looking, I don't really look at charts that much, but it's looking pretty positive. I thought when we dipped below, shall I screen share? How do I screen share on this thing? More?
Big button.
Screen. There's a big massive button in the middle, which is green. That one, is it? By any chance? You've disabled it.
Used to using Jitsi.
You've disabled screen share, Thomas.
You got multiple partners can use it.
You need to enable. Oh, there we are. There we are. Cool. Right. So, go away. Don't want to join. Right. So let's reload it.
You gotta have U matrix, man. You gotta have U matrix.
Here we go. Yeah, I should have used. Right. So obviously we had this dead cat bouncing thing going on where, the Bitcoin price went up and then it went down and then it kept going down, but it kept going up and getting our hopes up. And then it kept dropping down like a little dead cat bouncing. And then historically, Bitcoin would continue to do that. Then maybe it tick up a little tiny bit just to get our hopes up and people buying, and then it tick down again. And then we'd have to wait about 3 or 4 years for it to do a significant move. But this time round, it seems that dead cat bounce was just one little insignificant hiccup on the crusade upwards, because we've really broken free of that resistance, and the sky's looking nice and clear, and it looks like we're going to just continue to move up. I think, but we have had some real FOMO-ish events, like Elon Musk with his Twitter, changing his Twitter profile about at Bitcoin and it's inevitable and all this stuff, and Michael Saylor doing his thing and whatever else. But I can't see why the Bitcoin price won't continue to make its gentle, incline upward. And it's broken. Like when I saw it doing the downward chart thing, I thought, oh, here we go again. We'll probably drop down to, I don't know, 10 grand now, and we'll bounce around there forever for a couple of years, and then we'll shoot up to 100 grand. But that hasn't happened. So yeah, we're still in a very bullish looking market, in my opinion. But Josh, this is your world. What is happening? Should we all be scared, or should we all be rejoicing?
No, I'm really happy. I'm really happy with this whole movement. I think it's really been good for the market to correct itself properly. I was really getting scared when it first hit 40,000, because I just hate it when it screams up and then we have a 2-year pause at the bottom and we're all selling our crypto, trying to live and selling this precious thing to live. I just it just sucks. So and then meanwhile, all these idiots on Wall Street are buying up all the normies crypto, and that's just sad. So I'm really glad it pulled back a bit, and it's been consolidating sideways. It's been gaining some confidence up at this new level. People are like, okay, this is what Bitcoin's worth now. This is new normal. Like it would have been unheard of a year ago to think, just hanging around 35K for like 2 weeks, really unheard of. It would have been like, it's way overpriced. But now people are like, yep, this is the new price. So it sets a new solid grounding, a floor, whatever you want to call it, or a trampoline there for that. So the dead cat looks more like a, I don't know, flying fox or something that sort of swooped down. these animal analogies. Hey, we have a wonderful bonus, a donation here to the World Crypto Network from the Madman.
I was going to say, Josh, last time in 2017, it seemed like we only had a few weeks or maybe even just a couple of days for which to make our decision about whether or not we should sell and so forth. Now people have had lots of time to make their decision. They can feel really comfortable with selling and getting out. So, of course, like Ben said, the price is going to go higher to punish all those people for selling at an incredible price. If you're selling Bitcoin at 30,000 and you bought it at less, it's way up. Like, you did really well. But like Ben said, now they've given us all this time to think and all this time to think about, what you could buy and what you could buy if you sell. And that'll probably lead to more sells, which means it'll go up and punish all those people. It only does the opposite of whatever I do. Ben, do you want to talk, or I'll answer the question as well too, Josh, from the thing. Go ahead, Ben. You're muted.
Well, from the chat, man. Yeah, McKay says been following you since 2013. Cool, well done. And he's wondering McKay is wondering what will happen to BTC if we end up with a deflationary crash. I personally think that for most sovereign fiat currencies, we won't have a deflationary crash. I don't think it's likely, but I do think that the world is primed and ready for a free and open source money, and a lot more interest in commerce, and everything else will pour into Bitcoin. And then a lot of these fiat currencies will run on Bitcoin at some point. I expect within the next 5 years we'll have a pretty well established, like a big country, like successful country, switching to a Bitcoin backed fiat currency. But I don't think they'd switch to Bitcoin directly. But yeah, no, I don't think we're going to have a deflationary crash. I might be wrong. Who knows? It might happen. And if it did happen, I'm sure Bitcoin would go absolutely potty because everyone would pour their wealth into it.
For all the optimism around Bitcoin and the price is up and all of this and that, let's remember this is a pessimist currency, right? This is the currency you buy if you're looking for a nice thing to own while you sit back and watch the world burn. So deflationary crash, inflationary crash, market crash, stocks crash, COVID, all these things, good for Bitcoin, right? I was just watching Undercover Billionaire, and they were talking about all these people that were suffering and all the businesses that were closing because of COVID. And I was like, well, how's my business doing? How's the Bitcoin business? And I was like, oh yeah, we're crazy up. Everyone's crazy up. No one's really feeling the pain of the outside if they did their job and they invested in Bitcoin. And sure, you got to sell some every once in a while if you want to keep living and that kind of thing. But no, we are in the watch the world burn business. And I think this is sad. I think we should try to save the world. I think it's the only world we have. When I was listening to Elon Musk on Clubhouse this week, I was like, oh yes, Elon, it's so great. We're going to go to Mars, but what about the Earth? The only Earth we have. And Elon was more like, we need to find a way to make Mars survive without the Earth. And I was like, that's not quite the same question. I would prefer to save the only Earth we have first before we go to Mars. Josh Hagala, what do you think? Pessimism rules?
I think positive is really important. It's super important, and we should. I know I come on here sometimes like I feel sometimes like I'm the grumpy old guys sitting in the Muppet Show, just. But no, look. In terms of McKay's question here, the stock market is booming, right? Is it though? Is it though, or is everything up in price because the dollar is slowly like we are seeing a devaluation right now? Is Bitcoin up in price because we're seeing a devaluation? Why is the stock market? Why are all these companies that are ridiculously just like flight like airplane companies and stuff that's totally should be down in the dumps? Hotels even are up. Like it just doesn't make any sense. And so you've got to think what is actually happening. Is the monetary system decoupling from reality? I would dare to say it is. I would dare to say that right now we're seeing total weirdness. And this GameStop scenario isn't just a bunch of Redditors. It isn't just a bunch of Redditors. It's a sign of the total ludicrous joke that Wall Street's become, that the markets are. They're just decoupled from reality, from the reality of a hard-working, solid business. You have people like Warren Buffett who would be like, I look at balance sheets and I can just tell right away if a company's worth this, and I will buy an undervalued company. And like, he wouldn't know what to buy right now. He'd be spinning out, just going, well, I'm just glad I made a shit ton of money in the 80s because I wouldn't know what to do right now. The guy, like, the whole market's out of control. So a deflationary crash, I think it's, I think we're going to see a massive amount of inflation over the next few years. It's going to happen. It's inevitable now. It's inevitable. I mean, it always has been, but it's getting closer to actually being able to see it. And it's not even getting closer. You can actually see it. I mean, properties here in Berlin are silly, guys. I don't like. When I first moved to Berlin 8 years ago, you could buy a really nice 120 square meter apartment in the middle of the city for like 500K. You can't get anything now for less than $1 million. 1.2 mil, that's in 8 years. Like, it's doubled, even tripled in value. There's hardly anything on the market. Everything's getting swooped up. Like, inflation is here. If you look at stuff like, if the best thing I ask people to do is stop looking at inflation indicators, which are totally manipulated, and go to the supermarket and every year buy the same thing. Just buy a bunch of bananas, some milk, some bread, some bacon, so, just normal stuff, some flour, and look at the price tag and see what's happening. That's the best way to determine inflation.
The Big Mac Index, yes. There's another question in the chat. What about the Bank of England floating negative interest rates? As strange as it is, I think the time for negative interest rates have come. It's going to be necessary everywhere. They're going to have to charge people for holding their money. There's a certain cost to holding money, to securing it, and so forth. And again, with these things, everyone freaks out. They're like, oh, I'll just get rid of my savings account, blah, blah, blah. They're talking about people that have more than $100,000 in there, people that are basically using the banks for storage of money and not contributing to the banks. The banks, like the exchanges and the trading platforms, they want you to be an active participant. They want you to be generating fees. And if you're just holding a ton of money in the bank, you're not generating fees. So
yeah, our vaulting suppliers, we vault gold, of course, and our vaulting supplier, Pro, they have an amazing vaulting facility, top tier vaulting facility, and they've had to stop telling banks to secure fiat in their vaults because they'd rather hold fiat, big bags of cash, paper with bloody ink on this stuff in a vaulting facility next to actual assets, next to bullion. Because it's cheaper than sending it to the central bank and paying negative interest rates. Like, so we're in a weird world right now, folks. I would definitely get as much, only keep as much money in the bank as you're willing to lose.
And moving on to the exit question, competing against the undefeated predictor of Bitcoin price. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week? Ben Ark.
Higher. Maybe significantly higher, but yeah, higher.
Higher. Josh Shigala, go ahead.
Well, after Michael Saylor's shill fest, it'll probably be higher, but I kind of feel like it needs to bounce off of 40 a couple more times to break through. So I feel like it might touch 40, have a little tickle under the arm there, and head back down, and probably bounce off 35, maybe bounce between 35 and 40 for a while, and until it breaks 40. Now is definitely the time to slowly every week. Now, if you didn't do it 10 years ago, the next best time is right now.
I remember it always, it's allergic to round numbers. It's going to go to like 49.9, or it's going to go to 48.7, and it's going to break everybody that waits for 50, something like that. But let's check with the ball, the undefeated predictor of predictors, prognosticator of prognosticators. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? My sources say no. That's about as definitive an answer as you can get from a Magic 8-Ball. Moving on to issue 4. Police seize $60 million worth of Bitcoin. Now, where's the password? I don't think you quite understand that word you used, seized. Police in Germany have seized more than 50 million euros, that's $60 million, from a fraudster. There's only one problem. They can't unlock the money because he won't give them the password. The man was sentenced to jail and has since served his term, but he has maintained his silence throughout, while police made repeated failed efforts to crack the code to access more than 1,700 Bitcoin, said a prosecutor in the Bavarian town of Kempten. We asked him, but he didn't say, the prosecutor told Reuters on Friday. Perhaps he doesn't know. Josh Shigala, will this become more of a problem in the future with police suddenly unable to seize criminal assets?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they'll use all the old tricks. The thing is that governments and police in general, they're very, very good with psychology. So they will probably just say, well, if you don't tell us, you stay in prison. If you tell us, we'll cut 10 years off your sentence, then that'll release it. This sorts of stuff that bullies do. I mean, depending if he deserved it, I don't know this character. I don't know what he did. I haven't read the case, how he frauded. You never know what he did, so I can't say if he's a total fraud or not. But yeah, I think it'll happen more and more. I'm quite surprised often that government sees Bitcoin, like large amounts of people. But I think that's how they do it. They just say, well, then have fun with Bubba in cell 3.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition, and all you have to do is confess, and we'll let you go. We won't burn you. Just confess. Ben Ark, will they get the keys? Are the police going to get the money? You're muted again because I muted you.
Because when you mute me, I have to then click on a button which says unmute. I'm just going to have to get a quiet keyboard, so you'd have to keep muting me. We always talk about the wrench attack, the seizure attack. So if the cops burst through your door and arrest you, then they shouldn't be able to access your Bitcoin. And I think we saw with Silk Road. Yeah, Silk Road, when the Bitcoin was seized, how incredibly untrustworthy the police, the investigative team were, who seized the Bitcoin. They became corrupt and started stealing the Bitcoin because obviously, it's privacy centric, censorship resistant. So they were just able to pull the sats out, pull that Bitcoin out for themselves. And that would be a legitimate concern if you were arrested and you had Bitcoin, that, okay, maybe you'd want to cooperate with authorities, but you just literally don't trust the agency who's arrested you to not steal the money. So I think it's a great bargaining chip. And as Andreas always used to say, any good money should be able to be used by criminals for criminal activities. So I think, we've seen a few Bitcoiners get locked up and come out of prison and then maintained their wealth and not have it seized and taken from them. But that's the whole point. That's why we're here. You know, it's like a gold, which you can. It's easier to smuggle and to hide than gold. In fact, you can even just store a seed in your brain. Let me share something with you actually, because I was working on this this week and I made it a bit better. I don't know if you remember, but do you remember where 39? So I took any three words, the concept of any three words, and then mapped it to bit 39. So if I refresh it here, is it working? Oh, there we are. So if I click on anywhere, so here we are. Let's have a look. I'll go to Swansea, which is where I am. I won't click exactly where I am, but there we are. And any location can be located to a square meter with 4 words using BIP 39 seed phrase. But that's the era we're in. We're in a bearer asset, and the reason pirates had treasure maps and all sorts of interesting ways of securing their wealth was because with a bearer asset, you need to secure it, and one way in which you could secure it is using something like Where 39. So the upgrade I did to it, was so when you click now, it now changes it for the URL, and you can copy that URL and send it to somebody. You can also shuffle the words. Actually, it's pretty cool. So you can put in like a random number, and then if I click shuffle, it'll shuffle the words using that random number, which means that only if you share these 4 words with somebody, then they'll have to have the random number as well to be able to reshuffle the words and find out exactly where that location is. Little bit of a tangent. I was using it as a very loose segue to show my shit. But we're in the bearer asset era where money is no longer this digital thing or these heavy bags of cash or whatever. It's something you can just stash as a seed in your brain or as a 4 words that you remember and bury it somewhere. Using something like Where 39. By the way, with Where 39, you can run it offline on your own phone or laptop, and you can verify the code to make sure I'm not going to steal your treasure. But yeah, it's really interesting to see someone go all the way through prison. Probably could have used it as a bargaining chip, but just refused to. And I bet a large portion of that was he just didn't trust the authorities to nick the money themselves.
Exit question, building on Josh's idea. In the United States, debtors' prisons are illegal. If you don't pay your debts, they can no longer just put you in prison until you pay. Will they change the laws and force you to reveal your words, to give up your keys before you can exit prison? Yes or no, Josh Segala?
It's a pretty tricky one because there is some ethical considerations here. You could literally say, I don't know them. And what do you
could have had a boating accident.
Could have had a boating, and we all know that treasures don't float. But I really love Where 39. I just love the fact that you can break up the entire planet in, what is it, 3 by 3 meter or 5 by 5 meter portions. And
yeah, it's 4 words gets you down to, I think it's like 1.5 meters, but if you use the 5 words, it's like that,
It's amazing. Absolutely crazy. Stunning. And so why do you need to remember some ridiculous address when you can remember 3 words? It's just beautiful.
That could be a solution for India as well. You know how India doesn't have streets and addresses. It's very difficult to deliver packages. They say things like behind the red barn, 2 street, down the way. If they had Ben's little system with the words, you could just get your mail or your package delivered to the 4 words.
Yeah.
So Ben, will they do it? Yes or no, Josh? You're saying yes.
Well, I don't. Maybe, yeah, probably in some places.
They must have your keys, Ben Ark. Will they do it? Yes or no?
Do what they're going to do?
They'll change the laws to make it so you have to compel your keys before you can leave prison. Like this guy right here, sure, he's completed his sentence, but if the law said, who cares? You have to give up the money. For example, he made it through fraud or whatever.
Michael Saylor did a good little bit on this. He was talking about taxes. And then despite being a bit of a lefty and all that, I don't like taxes. And I think taxes should be, the harder taxes are to get out of people, to pull out of people, the more honest they become. The easier they are to kind of pull out of people, then the less honest they are. And the more, the less fair they are as well. It's different classes in society. So I want taxes should be hard to get. And Michael Saylor does a good bit about people claiming taxes on Bitcoin, and ultimately you could just turn around and say, forgotten the words. I'm sorry. It's gone. And it's the same with this guy in prison. You just, like Josh said, you could just claim to forget the words, and then later on when he gets out of prison and he's home free and he's in a nice tropical climate, he can then suddenly remember the words. I always liked Charlie Shrem when he was like destitute out of prison, and then a few months later he's on a yacht. Okay, Charlie, did you have some Bitcoin stash by any chance?
Yeah.
I don't like taxis either. That's why I always take Uber. Moving on to issue 5. Issue 5. Oh yeah. Almost there. Issue 5, Bitcoin's wild ride renews worries about its massive carbon footprint. Bitcoin has a carbon footprint comparable to that of New Zealand, producing 36.95 megatons of CO2 annually, according to Digiconomist. The cryptocurrency consumes more electricity than the entire annual energy consumption of the Netherlands. Cambridge University researchers say. Critics say there are alternative tokens. It's quiet that consume far less power, while bulls argue disputes about Bitcoin's environmental impact miss the point. No figures were provided for the environmental usage of banks and the existing system. No figures were provided for the costs of wars and other destructions caused by the existing system. Ben Ark, are they right? Is Bitcoin's carbon footprint out of control? You're muted.
Muted, still muted.
It's the button that says unmute. No,
I think maybe I'll take this one. We've come across this topic for ad nauseum. I mean, it's something that we talk about at least once every month. No, maybe once every 2 months. But the whole notion of the fact that Bitcoin is proof of work. Actually, one of the most important parts of Bitcoin is that it's proof of work. And actually, I think it's got a wider effect in the fact that we're looking as a community, or the miners definitely are looking for cheaper ways to generate electricity. Because the fact of the matter is, the way the world produces power is so ludicrous. We are surrounded in energy. We've got so much energy and power around us. It's just insane. It's insane. Just the amount of oceans and the waves and the heat in the ground. I mean, the heat in the ground is so extraordinary, just silly how much power. And we're like, ooh, we've got to have Earth Day and all turn off our lights for an hour. No, we don't. We got to find better ways of tapping power, you idiots. What are you doing? You're still burning dinosaur juice? You're still burning coal and grabbing coal out of it? What are you doing? So what Bitcoin is doing is forcing people to find these cheaper forms of energy. And most of the mining farms, especially in China, are going through hydroelectric. You're seeing huge hydroelectric plants that are just basically wasting energy. So they just chuck Bitcoin, look for Bitcoin. And in Iceland, you're getting heaps of mining farms up there because they've got massive amounts of geothermal. So the whole thing of Bitcoin is, how do we get cheaper energy? And cheaper energy is from the earth, something that you don't need to dig out, something that you don't need to refine, which all adds costs. In the past, it was good because one company could monopolize this thing that was very hard to do and then give it to you to put into your car. But finding for energy for Bitcoin miners, they want to get direct to the source. They don't want to sit there adding value. They just want to get straight into the earth, find that hot spot, find the heat in the ground and boil some water, create some steam. And that's what will happen. Bitcoin will not only give us freedom of money, it will also help us find freer energy.
I agree with Josh. We talk about this at least every 6 months. And my answer is always the same. They've taken this calculation, they've multiplied it times 1,000, and they say after 1,000 cycles, it will be taking so much energy. Well, after 10,000 cycles, it'll be taking so much energy. And they never take into account, like Josh was saying, the potential gains from hydroelectric power that is currently just being wasted if they don't have enough batteries. Batteries are very expensive, especially even compared to Bitcoin miners. You could just mine the Bitcoin at the hydropower sources, essentially storing the energy in a Bitcoin battery. That's one thing. Solar power, wind power, all of these things, even nuclear power can be used to mine Bitcoin. So I think these solutions, as well as more efficient chips, better hardware, technological solutions that we cannot predict yet keep happening over and over again. So no, I don't think we're in a Malthusian situation where we're running out of food and everything's gone bad. The other side of this is that if Bitcoin is so good, which again, Michael Saylor, all these corporations, all these famous people are into it now, Gene Simmons, etc. Bitcoin must be so good. How are they going to ever convince anyone to stop mining it? You have to look at the incentive structure. If you could plug in a machine that makes money, someone's going to plug in a machine that makes money. You can't convince them that the thing's not worth money, just like we just had 30, 50 years wasted in the war of drugs trying to convince people that drugs aren't good. Drugs just keep selling. They're not good. They're bad. Rah, rah. They just keep selling. Bitcoin's the same thing. People are addicted to it. They love it. They want to use it. It's going to keep selling. So I would say more about let's put those miners in the hydroelectric plants. Let's do like Ukraine is talking about doing, building a new nuclear plant just to mine Bitcoin, using cleaner sources of energy to continue to produce, as well as I didn't talk about, a better product for the world, better than central banking, better results, better for the people. Ben Ark?
Yeah, I mean, none of us know miners, and yeah, they're not living this like cypherpunk, private dream which people want. They're real world big entities which you're able to lobby against and ensure that they use renewables as opposed to fossil fuels. I mean, part of the big problem for Bitcoin has been the Chinese subsidized coal power plants, but the Chinese government, I think they realized that Bitcoin was making up like a relatively small amount of GDP when it came to harnessing some of the surplus power from some of these power stations. So I'm sure they clamped down on that not long ago, and then Bitcoin started to seek out, like Josh said, cheaper energy, which equates renewables. Like Josh said, and there's energy everywhere. You take this many light photons from the sun, and you can put it through a magnifying glass and set something on fire. Like there's energy everywhere, so it's abundant. And the cheapest form of energy is renewables. You just need to harness it properly, and Bitcoin does incentivize that. This article was almost touting proof of stake as being a feasible alternative to proof of work, and sadly, it's just not. I mean, if you want business as usual, just a few big exchanges or big financial institutions to have the large proportion of say onto how Bitcoin works, then yeah, it moves to a proof of stake system, because that's essentially what proof of stake is the more you stake, the more you say you have in the network. So yeah, proof of work has worked for us in Bitcoin, and until we're not going to find a better alternative solution anytime soon. And it's really, it's proof of work itself isn't bad for the environment. It's the way in which the energy we decide to use to do that mining, to commit that hash power, how we decide how we harness the energy is the problem, and that's something which can be lobbied against with these miners, and we don't need to worry about them needing censorship resistance and privacy, because that's just not how mining works. And we can see that by the very fact that none of us know any miners out there, so yeah, it's and also there's some of the stats. So they said that one Bitcoin transaction is equivalent to 100,000 Visa transactions. Now, I do get, if I get a plane somewhere, I'm, again, being like a snowflake lefty type, I get plane shame. I feel bad about it, all the energy which I've consumed flying from one place to another. And if I do a Bitcoin transaction on chain, I do legitimately feel guilty about it. I'm like, okay, the energy used for this Bitcoin transaction could power a house for a month or whatever, I don't know. And I tend to try and avoid it, on-chain transactions. And I think that's okay. That's a healthy thing to do. Like, if you understand that it is consuming all this energy, and you would rather not do that, then fair enough. But you don't want to, remove the ability for people to fly on planes, and you can't do that. As societies, as they become more advanced, their energy usage goes up. That's how it works. It's advancing societies, and energy usage are just, they're linked together, and they just move upwards. So yes, we need to move to renewables.
Go back to living in camps with tents with coal fires burning while we choke on our fumes because
get the old London smog
don't
back.
Want to use electricity. Like, we should be using more power.
More power.
We've just got to find better versions of it. Like, you've just got to find better electricity. We have found it. It's just that the silos are making far too much money, just like the reason we haven't had electric cars, and we've been told for years how slow. What, do you want a golf cart? Electricity is far too slow. You'll be moving, all this nonsense, this crap they've told you. All it took is one billionaire to go, you know what, screw it, I'm going to make an electric car. And everyone's like, wow, these things are magic. These things are amazing. Yeah.
To be fair, just going back to the stats as well. So 100,000 Visa transactions for one Bitcoin transaction. Grubels did on Twitter. He's one of the Blockstream devs. He did on Lightning Network on top of a Liquid token. In fact, he did an experiment. So he did of transactions, and he did 500,000 transactions in a 24-hour period between two people on a channel. And they were like low-end computers, and they could do 500,000 transactions. There's 400,000 transactions in Bitcoin in a day currently. So 100,000 Visa transactions. It is one Bitcoin transaction. It consumes the same amount of energy as one Bitcoin transaction. So 400,000 Bitcoin transactions. If we say switch to off-chain, Lightning transactions, then that's what 40 billion transactions in a day. So we can, I think Visa do 1 billion transactions a day. So we energy wise, we could, like, yes, currently, one Bitcoin transaction is 100,000 Visa transactions, and it's just one person move money to one place to another. But in the future, that Bitcoin on-chain transaction is going to contain so much, so much information and so much transaction history through things like the Lightning Network and Licton Network and side chains, and then things like Taproot and the ability to amassed, and the ability to have these scriptless scripts which are kind of concatenated down into tiny little scripts and then embedded in a Bitcoin transaction. There's going to be so much you're going to get so much out of one Bitcoin transaction that it will be equivalent to 100,000 Visa transactions. So actually, its energy consumption isn't that bad when you think about it in that light, that okay, yeah, maybe we're just using Bitcoin transactions just sending money from one person to another. Yes, they could be more economical in that we could pack a lot more information, a lot more movement within that one transaction by using things like Lightning Network. So yeah, it's the energy consumption isn't that bad, and yes, incentivize renewables, and it's not something to worry about.
I agree, Ben. They never even talk about transaction batching, which is an old idea that we had on Pro Tip years ago, before Coinbase and the other exchanges started using it, and now they use it all the time. There's a couple of good comments in the chat I wanted to read. Hold on just a sec. They said, Miguel says, the banks, the vaults, the trucks to move fiat around, utilities to heat those bankers and buildings. The bank I was an operator for was the 10th largest computer system on the East Coast. And that's one bank. Crypto Cleanse says the same thing. He says, last Super Bowl, Bank of America had a commercial talking about their 250,000 employees. 250,000 employees use a lot of energy. And that's, again, one bank. So the exit question, when they do this article again in 6 months, oh, henny penny, the sky is falling, Bitcoin uses too much energy. Will they ever even attempt to compare a Bitcoin financial system to the legacy system? Josh Shigala.
I don't know, maybe because every few months people get more and more educated. But you know, it ruffles feathers. The news cycle wants to ruffle feathers because ruffling feathers gets people to click. So probably not.
Ben, Ark.
I mean, I thought this article was pretty balanced, to be fair, and I think that we're going to see more balance, and they're more pro Bitcoin usage because it incentivizes renewables. So yeah, it's going to get better. I think people will get bored of that story that Bitcoin is destroying the planet with this energy usage, and that they would have read the arguments against that. So
I'm going to be convinced here by Ben's non-cynical view that yes, the next article will be the variation. They'll say, "Oh no, we just found out that Bitcoin doesn't actually
saving the planet.
have that much power. Bitcoin could save the planet. We could spend less on banking, all these transaction things, all these technologies. Wow, it's almost like just multiplying something by 1,000 and saying it'll be different in 1,000 days isn't the way to predict the future. It's almost like that's too simplistic. I don't know.
I feel like what's going to happen more the case is in 6 months' time, they'll be comparing Ethereum's proof of stake a little bit more to the proof of work and stuff like that. So we'll just see. I mean, I think proof of stake also, I mean, it's all an experiment. You know, we confidently say in the show, proof of stake's nowhere near as good, this and that and the other thing. It's all an experiment. It's very young technology. So we'll wait and see. You know, I do feel that proof of stake generally rewards the already wealthy. But then again, it takes a lot of money to mine already. So that you need to be wealthy to mine as well at the moment.
My cynicism has returned. Maybe they'll do an article comparing Ethereum's proof of stake positively to Bitcoin's negative proof of work before they get to this incredible revelation, which again, these people will be blown away. They'll be like, we thought Bitcoin used so much power, but then we thought about it differently using our brains. And oh, it was so different. Gosh, if only we used our brains more often.
Yeah, proof of stakes. No, I mean, it's just, it's business as usual. If you want that, I don't want that. That's why I'm in Bitcoin.
Well, we did it. We made it to the end of the show. I think we're ready for predictions or story of the week. Josh Shigala, you wanted to go ahead with a prediction or a story of the week?
Well, my prediction is that, no, I have a story of the week, actually. I know it won't go down well on this show, but we added Ethereum on Vaultoro.
Yay!
Hey! Look.
It's really good. I mean, I actually like some of the DeFi stuff. I know it gets bagged on the show, but for instance, I bought my car by locking up ETH and not having to sell it and borrowing money against myself. I think it's a really interesting idea to, instead of going to a bank and borrowing money, I lock up some of my own collateral and borrow against myself half of what's in there and go and buy a physical thing. I'm driving a car now that I bought with crypto that I never had to sell. And I'm charging a small interest rate, which the network charges me, and then you know, Ethereum's gone up quite a bit, so I don't really have to worry about the interest rate that much. So I am fascinated by some of this stuff. I really, there are some projects that are building it on Bitcoin as well, some DeFi things. And look, when I say DeFi, I think the original DeFi is Bitcoin, because that is a decentralized finance tool. It's decentralized finance means a financial instrument without intermediary, and really that's where we're heading. And we shouldn't poo-poo everything because it's on other chains. I think there's really interesting people building interesting ideas, especially with decentralized exchanges. So that you know, I know I run an exchange, but decentralized exchanges are really cool. They're a really interesting idea, and I can't wait for stuff to happen on side chains on Bitcoin. I just hope it happens soon, because you know, I just don't see it really taking off as much as the amount of work being done on the Ethereum chain in terms of that stuff. At the end of the day, we've got Bitcoin doing its thing, and that's holding value. And I don't think it should compete. Maybe it should. I don't know. But I think the market is pointing towards Ethereum doing this sort of work in the world. So I would like to see more stuff happening on the Bitcoin network, using some of that extraordinary hash power that secures that network to do other things than just holding value. When I say just, that's a pretty amazing thing that it does. But yeah, so we added it to Vaultoro, and people can trade between precious metals and Ethereum, and gold and Ethereum. And Bitcoin and Ethereum with negative interest rates. Negative interest rates. That story. Negative trading fees, I was meant to say.
Very cool. And people can check that out at vaultoro.com, right? All right. Let's go. Yeah, good. All right, let's go to Ben Ark. Prediction or story of the week. Go ahead.
That's going to be on CoinGeek tomorrow. It's going to be Vaultoro has negative interest rates.
Major announcement.
No, Ethereum, man, it's the stuff which is built on Ethereum is mind-boggling, and its gravity seems to attract a lot of very good developers. I think it's a lot more welcoming and snooty than less snooty, than the Bitcoin quote unquote community. But it does. Proof of stake's not my cup of tea, and it kind of feels like house built on sand almost. When you build a project on it. I mean, I don't know. I think Ethereum's going anywhere anytime soon. I think it's very stable cryptocurrency, whatever you want to call it. It's not something I pay too much attention to, but I do know there's a lot of interesting, very cool things being built on it, particularly in the DeFi world, as I like to call it, DeFi world. I still need to look into. I don't go down that rabbit hole of looking into DeFi, but it's stuff which I'm interested in it. I'm interested in the concept of it. So yeah, it's cool that Vaultoro's. I mean, that's what people want, isn't it? People who are trading between Bitcoin and gold, like they want to be able to then switch to Ethereum when Ethereum pumps, when Bitcoin goes up and drops, and then Ethereum does this little pump it always does after a Bitcoin's dropped. That's what people want to be able to quickly switch into Ethereum to be able to make their gains there. So fair enough. I haven't got a story. I haven't got a story of the week. I think I did it probably with the Where 39 stuff. I've been arguing a lot with the Locker. I don't know if it was. But yeah, so Locker Mesh is like a Venezuelan Bitcoin. They did a crowdfunding campaign for a hardware gizmo which does mesh networking, and I expressed some concerns last year in July about the project, that it seemed like a lot of lofty promises, not much production development, a disproportionate amount of energy into securing these pre-orders for this hardware device, and I just I was like, look, but I hope I'm wrong. Hopefully this project will work and everyone will build this cool device and people will be able to have decentralized communication to this mesh network. And as the year wore on, it seemed that wasn't happening, and then Locker Mesh, the company, folded. I don't think they're going to. I mean, I don't know. I've heard mixed things. Some people have said they're going to honor the pre-orders, and other people have said they're not going to honor the pre-orders. So I spent a large proportion of my week battling with that lot, because I called them scammers. Maybe shouldn't have done, but I don't know. It just seems, within Bitcoin, which, like Thomas was saying early on, we're always trying to sort of build out the community, trying to help it progress forward. And one of the ways in which I could do that was sort of building and make a community. And then other people I knew were kind of getting in, and we were getting involved in getting people to build their own things, little gizmos and hardware wallets and mesh devices, whatever. Like Steppen with his hardware wallet, and some people like Justin Moon and DIY Bitcoin Pac-Man. He's put a nice group together on Telegram. We're all building all these hardware solutions using playing around with Bitcoin and Lightning Network. So it's important that if someone's got a worthwhile project, they're able to get funding and do crowdfunding. But then it's also important that people don't take advantage of that. So it kind of felt like the Locker Mesh team kind of took advantage of that. It's a bit of a downer, but yeah, hopefully I'm completely wrong and they will fulfill all those orders and honor all those orders, but it's not looking good at the moment. So it's a bit of a shame.
Well, part of the problem, Ben, is that people want to use this scam term and they want to poison everyone and throw them under the bushes. You meant to do this. You meant to fail. But the other side is just as bad when you take on something that's too big and you say, oh, we overpromised and we're going to make this and it's going to be amazing. And you don't know how you're going to do it. You don't know where you're going to do it. It's almost just as bad as the scam, but it's done with good intentions. We meant so well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazon and Uber, they were all underfunded too. And that's just like us.
I mean, this is kind of this is almost it's the ICO argument, isn't it? It's like, when can someone admit to themselves that what they're running is a scam? You know, they have people around them saying, yes, this is a worthwhile project. You're going to build, you know, I don't know, whatever you're going to build, this ICO thing, this ICO concept. And then they have all this like reinforcement around them, and they're able to kind of convince themselves that what they're doing isn't a scam. But ultimately, in the back of their mind, they must know that they're not going to be able to fulfill these extreme promises they're making to people.
Never, ever. They believe you. What you do is you believe the lie. And from then on, you can beat a polygraph. You can beat anything, and you have the best of intentions. You're in jail, and they're like the guy at the fire festival. Does anyone remember that? They had a big party. It was going to be in the Bahamas, and the guy had never run a festival before. And everyone that worked for him, they're like, we thought he was going to pull it off. You know?
Oh yeah, that guy.
At the last minute, it was all going to come together, and the artists were going to come out, and it'd be like the end of Wayne's World 2, and everyone would be happy, and no one would need a refund. Well, you know what happened instead is they got there, the thing wasn't set up. It was like Lord of the Flies. They gave them like some rations and some tents that weren't set up, and they just let these Instagram people go with nothing. And these people got a total scam, and they got to live through it. And they were taking pictures of their grilled cheese sandwich and complaining about how terrible the cheese sandwich was.
But man, like, you know,
he meant well, Josh. He meant well. He wanted to have a nice music festival. And that's what we do in crypto is all these people overpromise, underdeliver. And we say, oh, they meant well.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, being in the startup world, you see a lot of pitch decks. They're all like that. They're all like that. ICO for me is just a way of raising money. Every pitch deck you get over promises. I mean, Steve Jobs, I can guarantee you, when he pitched Apple out of his garage, would have been like over promising and managed to pull it off. So there are some entrepreneurs that can actually do it. And you know, the difference between a scammer and an entrepreneur is that an entrepreneur actually actually wants to make it happen. You know, because they can't make it happen, or something fails, or it's out of their control, it's not always meaning it's a scam. And I feel like the word scam is overused because there are true scams like OneCoin, like BitConnect, that are really out there to systematically steal people's money and convince them that they're investing in something that's real. And that's what I think is really awful. And I feel like ICO gets a bad rap because it's a new funding mechanism, but I can guarantee you there's plenty of scams in the startup space as well. There's plenty of scams that are trying to take the money from both sides, startup scams and investor scams, trying to get money from startups, you know, like in the term.
But that's the bit which is really interesting to me is like, when does it become a scam? Like, how is it the person who's running it has to consciously know that they're ripping people off, or if everyone around them is like, that's not going to work, you're just taking people's money, you're not going to be able to deliver, don't do that. You know, that's basically what I said in July. Like, this looks like a scam. So if the people in BitConnect thought that what they were doing was good work, and actually this thing might work, and maybe it will make, you know, the world a better place, and maybe the world is ready for Bitcoin, but maybe it's ready for a BitConnect, or maybe it's ready for a OneCoin. Like they
never had the intention. That's the difference. They never made any software. They never even had a GitHub. They never had anything, but they were telling people they did. And they intentionally went out and did big events, huge, massive football stadiums full of like exploding fireworks and huge screens. Like, it was epic how much money they spent on the marketing side. Look, there is definitely scams in the ICO world, but I feel like we in the Bitcoin community say ICO, it's the mechanism that makes it a scam, but it's not. It's the scammer taking advantage of a mechanism. And I think it's a really nice mechanism, actually. It's just, it can be used really badly. I feel like people can raise money through a community, and the community have ownership through a cryptographic proof. I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with that. I know that on the show you guys don't like it, but I do feel like, And then you get people like Richard Hart, for instance, in that pump a scammy piece of shit that really doesn't go anywhere, right?
But then again, so he's an interesting one because in his head, I mean, it's almost like this Bitcoin cloud mining rigs solutions or whatever. Like they can convince themselves that what they're doing isn't a scam. Like even if they're like, well, okay, I haven't actually done the work yet, but I'll kick the can down the road. I'll get this investment, and then I'll do the work and build this like cloud mining solution, and then I'll do good by all my investors. That doesn't really apply to Richard Hart, but like they can rationalize it to themselves that they're going to make their project worthwhile and not just hot air and just wild promises, that they'll actually fulfill those promises by kicking the can down the road, and then they just keep getting more money, and then all of a sudden they become a scammer. And again, I think maybe with Richard Hart, I don't even know. Like he probably thought he was innovating with this hex thing. Like,
yeah. I mean, a better example would be, for instance, Mt. Gox and Mark Karpeles. He started off really wanting to build a cool exchange. He's like, this is cool technology, and he's going in there sipping his tea, his
ninja swords.
It's a frappa latte.
Frappa latte, and. He really started. The thing is, then he got hacked, and he was like, "Shit, how do I make up the money?" Well, we'll just invest over here and try to, and then you run into a downward spiral, and you're trying to hide funds, and it turns into a scam. There's those sorts of scams as well. So there's multiple. It's a big spectrum, but I feel like just calling everything a scam in the space, and I've said it before on the show, but I feel like it just diminishes the word scam, so that people think, Ethereum's a scam because it's not Bitcoin.
I've never outwardly called anything a scam before, but with this particular project, I was like, I think it's because the problem I had with it was like a week ago a couple of weeks ago on one of my Telegram groups I'm in, one of them turned up and said, "Hey, pre-order these devices. We're making these devices. We're going to sell them, blah, blah, blah." And then like 2 weeks later, they close. They doesn't look like they're going to honor their pre-orders. So this guy who was trying to get those last minute pre-orders sold, he knew that they weren't going to be fulfilled. Right. And to me, I'm like, right, you're a scammer. You're scamming people out of money. Yeah. I mean, I've still yet to be proven 100%. Maybe they'll just, surprise everybody and send these devices out to people. I don't think it's going to happen. But to me, that was like, okay, now I can just out. And I did. That's when I was like, right, you're a scammer, and sort of outwardly called them out on it.
I feel like the large part of the world has spent the last years totally removing risk from normal folk, de-risking, the obsession with de-risking everything. But instead of learning what a scam looks like, so people just run into any old scam. The crypto investor, just like in real life, you don't go into a shop and, of course we have laws and stuff, and we want laws and things, but we also need to be.
But that's the whole reason they're doing the ICO. Like you're all like defending the ICO, but the reason we have laws is so you can't do the ICO, so that you have to write down your name, so that when OneCoin goes out of business, we know where Dr. Ruja lives.
Yeah, but you can do that. The thing is, now, after the whole massive bubble of the ICO, the crypto market's still fairly small niche, has learned now, okay, I'm not investing in any ICO that doesn't refer names. Of course, there's always another sucker born every second.
I don't know that they've learned. I think they just moved on to DeFi, and they're pumping strange things called Wi-Fi and sushi. And I don't even know that those guys have an address or a real name. Or it's just Joe Hodler or something. I don't know.
No. I mean, most things that I've looked around, if they're raising money now, people are a lot more astute. They're like, is there a vetting period, or does the smart contract slowly release the funds over time? Do the token holders actually get to release every quarter if they're happy?
So is that possible now? Is it?
Yeah, that's all possible.
That's pretty cool.
It's just like George W. Bush said, fool me once, won't get fooled again.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that's pretty cool that that's possible, because yeah,
that's possible for sure. It's possible. And so, that's the great thing, is that the market is learning what is a scam. Of course, there's always new idiots, and I feel really sorry for
6 figures into Dogecoin. 6 figures.
6 figures. I mean, the poor guy.
It's like a movie. I want to see it. I want to see 6 figures into Dogecoin.
Terrible idea. But I do think now, from just a general, my view of the world, that I am seeing more astute investors in the crypto space compared to 2017.
Yeah, it's true.
I still think it's the classic Conan O'Brien quote from the Simpsons Monorail episode. A town with money is like a mule with a spinning wheel. You don't know how he got it, and you don't know what he's doing with it. Well, I think we're running out of time. Ben, do you have one more thing to say on that, or?
Not really. I mean, again, like I've said this the whole way through when I've been kind of calling them out, tactfully, and now less tactfully. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that, that they come good and they honor these pre-orders and they build some cool mesh networking things. Good luck to them, but it ain't looking good at the moment, sadly.
And again, for this delusion, it can last the entire time period. You can think that you're putting on a great music festival, or that you're going to start a 1,000-year Reich right up until that gunshot in the bunker. And then you're like, it didn't work out. I know, that was a deep pull. But I think we're about towards the end.
Quickly.
Quickly. But yes, thanks to everybody for donating. Thanks to the $10 in the super chat. We're at 62% of our new laptop fundraiser. You could donate now with on-chain Bitcoin or with the Lightning Network at Tallycoin. You could even try it out. Ben sent you some Satoshis there. Well, it's not loading right here, but all you have to do is go to Tallycoin. There's a little box that usually loads. You push like 50 cents or $1, and it'll make a Lightning invoice for you. And then you can try out your Lightning Satoshis.
Where's the QR code?
It doesn't work right now. There's some plugin issues or something. So, but I'm sure it will work for you. So give it a try. But that's about it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up and a share if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Yeah, you can barely hear us now because of Ben's terrible keyboard. It's like the worst keyboard in the world. But that's about it. Thanks so much. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.